Well, my PTSD was triggered by the so if I'm sweating for the next 10 minutes, don't worry. I'm coping.
Yeah.
I just think I might take it. You take Julia Pincus. Yeah, I was up here yesterday, just 10 minutes ago.
seated.
Mr. Coleridge.
Before we commence with the witness, you're all recall that during Sergeant Boland's evidence, Mr. Sutton suggested that there had been a statement that was provided to the council assisting team but quote-unquote rejected. We called for the document and return of the call to us. Mr. Sutton has confirmed by email correspondence that his reference to that statement was incorrect. And I'll just read onto the record the answer to the call, which is, I have discussed the question of the statement with Ms. McNally. My reference to it flowed from a misunderstanding relating to the document which eventually was submitted to me by Sergeant Bowens. I had incorrectly formed the impression that it had been offered and refused before it was requested. I now realise that I was incorrect. I apologise to you, your team, and the coroner for my mistake.
Thank you. Commissioner, thank you for making yourself available. Do you promise to tell the truth to the court?
Good morning, Your Honour. Yes, I do.
Commissioner Murphy, could you please just tell the court your full name for the record?
I'm Michael Patrick Murphy.
And you are the Commissioner of Police for the Northern Territory.
Yes, I am.
How long have you held that role for?
Since April 2023 and formally appointed in August 2023.
So you were acting since April 2023 and formally appointed in August 2023.
That's right.
Correct?
That's right.
Could you just briefly tell the court about your service as a police officer in the Northern Territory?
Yes, Your Honour. I joined the Northern Territory Police in July 1997, where I underwent training in Darwin. After graduation in December, I was transferred to Alice Springs. I served in Alice Springs until March 1999, but it relieved at some bush stations around Central Australia during that time. In March, I was transferred permanently to Nataria, and I served in Nataria for 2.5 years. In July 2001, I transferred to Katherine. In Katherine, I was there for 4.5 years and worked across general duties and the investigations area. In Katherine, I obtained my detective designation. From Katherine, I was promoted to sergeant back to Alice Springs, performed the roles of sergeant, watch commander, and the officer in charge of investigations for the Southern Command, which included all the crime disciplines for the Southern region. In 2008, I was promoted to superintendent and returned to Darwin as the inaugural duty superintendent to oversee operations across the Northern Territory. And around 2010, I did some acting roles as commander across strategic services and the like. And in 2011, was asked to return to Alice Springs by the then Deputy Commissioner. I came back here for till 2013 when I was, actually 2012, I was promoted to commander of Southern Region. And I stayed here till 2013, returned to Darwin, undertook some different roles as a Chief of Staff, Acting Assistant Commissioner roles, and in 2017 was appointed to Assistant Commissioner. I undertook a number of portfolios in regards to that. And then in 2018, early, probably mid-year, I was asked to relieve as a Deputy Commissioner, and that position became vacant, and I applied for the position and won that in December 2018, and I've been the Deputy Commissioner until August last year when I was formally appointed to the Commissioner role. And predominantly my roles have been in general duties, uniform and detective and investigative work.
Commissioner Murphy, the impact of racist language and messages on behaviour has been a significant issue in this inquest. You're aware of that?
Yes, I am.
As a result of the evidence given by Mr. Rolfe, this inquest became aware of racist certificates and awards that had been given out by members of the TRG at so-called award ceremonies. You know that?
Yes, I'm aware of that, yes.
They included certificates with a made-up name sounding like an Aboriginal language for so-called Coon of the Year award.
Yes, I'm
Aware of
aware.
that?
Yes, Your
When
Honour.
did you first become aware of certificates of that nature?
I was advised back in August last year by when I had a meeting with Kerry Joy of the existence of these awards.
People in the TRG at the time that the awards were given out included Sergeant Lee Bowens, a former police officer Neil Mellon. They are some of your contemporaries in the police force. Do you agree with that? They're people you know.
Yes, I do know them, yes.
Mr. Rolfe found out about those certificates as a young constable and was given the impression that it was a big joke. It doesn't sound like the existence of that racist award was a secret in the Northern Territory Police Force. Do you agree?
No, it doesn't sound like from the evidence now what's been given to this court, but it was news to me when I found out in August when I met with Kerry Joy, Your Honour.
Well, certainly everyone in the TRG would have known, who was present at the time of the awards were given out, would have been aware of them, correct?
Oh, I believe so, yes.
And it's the case, isn't it, that a large number of those, or a significant number of those TRG officers would have moved on and up in the Northern Territory Police Force
Yes, that'd
and
be right.
discussed those awards with other members of the Northern Territory Police Force.
They may have. I've never heard of it, but if they did discuss it, you'd think that someone would have mentioned it or may have come to me, but I have no knowledge of the existence of the awards.
Did you know about the physical awards that were given out at any time for that racist?
No, I was not, Your Honour.
What about the Noogata Club?
No.
What about the Black or Red Book of Truths? Had you heard about that?
No, I hadn't, Your Honour.
You've read the statement of Mr. Joy now, haven't you?
I have.
He's a former police officer. He was a police officer for a significant period of time, commencing in 2000 and up until 2016 over various periods.
Yes, I'm familiar with Mr. Joy's career. He spanned across the Northern Territory Police and the Australian Federal Police. He was a member of the TRG. He was a sergeant in Alice Springs. And yet I think he went on leave about 2013 and separated from the Northern Territory Police in 2016.
Was he a sergeant at Alice Springs when you were working in the centre?
I don't think so. I'm not sure when he came to Alice Springs. I'll probably have to check records, but I can't be confident he was.
Did you ever work with him?
We may have worked together at some point in time. I don't know. I can't remember if I worked with him closely. I don't think I did.
When did you first meet him?
I don't know. Probably in the early 2000s, I imagine.
This is what Mr. Joy says in his statement at paragraph 29. He wasn't in the TRG at the time when the so-called Noogata Award was made or presented. He says, I was made aware of the existence of the awards last year as the conduct was being discussed amongst a lot of ex and current NT Pol staff who were unhappy with the treatment of Rolfe and the IRT team throughout the inquest. It sounds like those certificates or the award were widely discussed and known about, at least in 2023 during the course of the inquest. Do you accept that?
They may have been. I have no knowledge of that until it was brought to my attention by Kerry Joy.
At paragraph 30, Mr. Joy says, as a result of this, I made the decision to make contact with the new Commissioner, Mr. Murphy, not long after his appointment to pass on my congratulations to him obtaining the job. I advised him that my work with media was never intended to create any issues with his position or tenure. You recall that meeting with Mr. Joy?
Yes, I do.
Who else was present at that meeting?
I think there was two occurrences when I caught up with him. I'm not sure about the first one. The second time I met with Kerry Joy was with Darren Clark.
Who is Mr. Clark?
He's a local businessman in Alice Springs.
I just want to return to the first meeting. When you met with Mr. Joy on that occasion, where he says he advised you that his work with the media was never intended to create any issues with you, Commissioner, what else did he say?
From memory, he was quite disaffected with the organisation. He was quite concerned around some of the decisions made by the executive. He explained he had a a real issue with the way his family was treated, and the previous executive didn't have an issue with me, and it was almost like an olive branch to stop, attacking the police and obviously helping. And I had a fair amount of compassion for Kerry as well. So he was going through some very difficult times, Your Honour.
Did you meet with him because you wanted to stop his criticisms of the Northern Territory Police?
No, not at all. I have some compassion for Kerry. I'm accessible. I made myself accessible to him. I usually make myself accessible to anyone that wants to meet with me. But I think it's about having a conversation and building relationships. And yes, one of my main roles is to protect the reputation of the Northern Territory Police Force and build relationships and listen to people's concerns. And that's part of my role, is to do that. So, yes, I guess I considered all those things when I met with him.
On the second occasion when you meet with him, that was on the 31st of August 2023, to discuss some issues such as staff resentment at the Coronial, information referring to an incident at a Chinese restaurant, and the existence of the Nougata Awards. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
He says the restaurant information had come to light as I'd made comments on a body-worn video, that is, body-worn police video, recorded by Superintendent Meacham King at my home residence in January 22. You became aware of that?
Oh, yes, I did.
In fact, Mr Joy was being investigated, wasn't he, for certain... I won't go to the particular details, but as a result of that, Meacham King spoke with him with a body-worn video roll. Is that right?
Oh, that's right.
So his comments in relation to the Chinese restaurant were captured on the body-worn video.
Yes, that's what he told me.
Have you listened to that body-worn video?
I've listened to some of it, yes.
When did you first listen to the body-worn video?
Yesterday.
Had you heard prior to that about the nature of the comments that he'd made?
No, only from Kerry on that date in August.
What he says is that the restaurant information had come to light as I'd made comments on the body-worn recorded by King at my home residence in January 2022. After the body-worn was obtained, I received messages and calls from police who were laughing and repeating comments I had made on the body-worn as I was very vocal and agitated. This made me aware that the content on the private recording was being discussed and shared with other officers, and the risk of this information coming out was significant. And I wanted the Commissioner to know this was not as a result of my doing. I was trying to assist in protecting him from public issues. You agree with that statement?
Yeah, that's some of the content he shared with me, yes.
So, in relation to what he said on body-worn, it involved a threat to go public with the fact that he was with you when you were in the Chinese restaurant making racist comments. That was the nature of the threat he made on the body-worn videos.
Yeah, that's right, amongst others.
The information that he gave you at that time when he met with you and the other representative of Action for Alice is in relation to the Nougata Awards. What did he say about them?
He broadly spoke of awards that were distributed in TRG for, and he demonstrated Coon of the Year and other behaviours that were unknown to me, so I asked some more questions about what actually were they, and he explained in more detail about they were on A4 sheets of paper and handed out at parties, but I had no knowledge of the existence of the awards at that point in time.
Did he tell you what the Coon of the Year award was given out for?
No, I can't remember. He mentioned some circumstances around the award, but I can't recall exactly what. I think the detail in his statement's probably far more detailed than the information he provided me on the day.
Right, but he told you about that, the use of that extremely offensive word in certificates that were handed out to Northern Territory police officers for certain behaviours. It would have been immediately obvious to you that that was blatantly racist.
Yeah, with that titling, absolutely, yes.
Did you take any notes of the conversation you had with Mr. Joy at that time?
No, I didn't.
Did you cause any investigation to be carried out in relation to those?
Your Honour, regrettably no.
Why not?
I think there's a number of things I've had time to think about it as well, is that, reaching out to Carey to meet with him, he had some information to tell me. He was disaffected. There was a number of challenges in his life. I had to question the reliability of it. What I know now to what I knew then, I probably didn't treat it with the seriousness I should have. I was this role is quite demanding. I was quite busy. I had a number of things on my mind during that time. I'd just been in Alice Springs talking to Commonwealth officials about investment in Central Australia. I was still dealing with the international operation of the death of the US Marines. I was dealing with the Barclay fires as the Territory Controller, and obviously getting some information together for the announcement of the police review that had been announced the previous week, and it was my first week as Commissioner.
I appreciate that you are extremely busy as Commissioner of the Northern Territory Police Force, but you also have other people underneath you who you can delegate to conduct an investigation. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right, and I should have delegated that, and I should have actioned it, and I should have reported to the Professional Standards Command, and regrettably I did not.
The incident in relation to the Chinese restaurant has been the subject now as a result of it being revealed of an ICAC investigation, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
And the interim finding, I would draw that, the finding of the ICAC Commissioner was that after speaking with you and others, you provided a reply that you have no recollection of complaining about restaurant service or saying words to the effect of, I wonder if this is what we did to them because of what we did to them in Vietnam, but you don't deny that it was said?
No, I vaguely remember the circumstance. I don't remember all the detail, Your Honour. I've been interviewed by the ICAC investigators where I gave an honest account. I can't make stuff up that I don't know and I can't remember. I was intoxicated during the time. I was honest and forthright with the ICAC, and they've obviously done their investigation and provided a letter to you, Your Honour,
Sure.
as a result.
But in relation to that, what was alleged by Carrie Joy on the body-worn video when he was interviewed by Mr. King, and admittedly, I would draw that, and he was animated, he says, in effect, that if you, I'll just read his words, I was with Murphy in a Chinese fucking restaurant. You want to go fucking off chart on all this fucking bullshit. I'll go hard. I was with Murphy when he called people in a restaurant, you're not serving us because of fucking Vietnam. We got thrown out. I'll go public with that. So you can drop this little thing. It says, push the EOC and tell Murphy you might want to come here. Because I was in a restaurant with him when we got thrown out after he abused staff in there for being Asian. Okay, so you can drop that little thing. If they keep going with her, I'll drop the lot of it. And then that body-worn video was circulated to police. Of that allegation, I accept that what we've told the ICAC Commissioner and Her Honour today, you can't recall. But it happened at the Bucks party, did it, of Peter Kennan?
I don't think that's accurate, Your Honour. I don't think there was a Bucks party for Peter Kennan.
What was the occasion at the restaurant?
I think it was just a dinner and having a few drinks.
And was Mr. Kennan there?
I don't remember.
Is the reason that you didn't investigate this further when Carrie Joy raised it, does it include because you were concerned about adverse publicity or embarrassment towards yourself if it got out?
No, it wasn't, Your Honour. I don't think I was overly worried about it. I think it was, I guess, courteous of Mr. Joy to let me know, but, I should have actioned it. I should have reported, especially the TRG awards, to the PSC and incorporated it with that. The fact that he made mention and it was circulated widely and recorded on body-worn video, I thought that some command elements would be aware of that allegation as well.
On the 27th of February 2024, following on from the evidence of Mr. Rolfe, you participated in a press conference. You recall that?
Yes.
And that press conference transcript appears in the brief of evidence at 7-100BB. But you're asked this question, Commissioner. Have you heard of any of these awards that Constable Rolfe was talking about yesterday? And you answered first, look, as I said, be some inquiries undertaken. It's too early to say. I appreciate and I have to respect the coronial process. I understand your curiosity, but that's all that I can say at this point in time. So the first time you were asked about the awards, you step around the question. Would you accept that?
Yes, well, I'm not answering the question. I'm not stepping around it either. I'm just providing a response.
You were immediately asked again. Sorry, Commissioner, I think the question was whether you were aware of the allegations that Constable Rolfe raised yesterday, particularly in relation to the Territory Response Group and its awards. And your answer is no, I was not aware of the TRG, these awards they spoke of. But as I said, there will need to be an inquiry now and a search for the truth to find out exactly what any basis, if any, of the assertions made yesterday in the court are true or not. You then asked about the senior officer who was involved in the Chinese restaurant thing, and you'll say there'll be an inquiry undertaken and a search for the basis. And you're asked again, what about the comments he made yesterday, that he could hear racist language every day in the police station and that many of the attitudes of those police officers came from the top? What's your reaction to that? And you say that's his evidence, that's the evidence he's given in court in the process. When I go to Alice Springs and other stations around the Territory, I do not see those behaviours, etc. So you are asked a direct question by the journalist. Were you aware of the allegations that Constable Rolfe raised yesterday, particularly in relation to the TRG group and its awards? And your answer is no, I was not aware of these TRG awards they spoke of. That was incorrect, that answer, wasn't it?
Yes, it was incorrect now. It wasn't intentional at the time. I just didn't draw a link to the meeting in August to the question when I was asked at that press conference.
Was it untruthful, the response that you gave to the journalist?
No, I'm not trying to be untruthful or misleading to the media or the community.
But Commissioner, the public and the government rely on you for an understanding of these events and the extent of racism in the Northern Territory Police Force, don't they?
They absolutely do, and I'm aware of my, obviously, commitment to the public and the importance of my position as the Commissioner of Police, Your Honour.
Do you accept that your response to the journalist was misleading the public, in fact?
I'd accept that's the case now, but it wasn't intended at the time.
The certificates you're now aware of as a result of the subsequent investigation commenced around 2006, and racist certificates have been found right up until at least they've been found up until 2015. You're aware of that?
Yes, I am.
These are not historic allegations, are they? Even in relation to the TRG awards, you wouldn't describe them as historic.
Well, they're quite dated, between 2007 and 2016, 17, being 2024 now. I'd say they're quite dated, but concerning that behaviour existed, and obviously taking measures to address that culture to making sure that doesn't exist into the future and drawing a line in the sand.
Do you know when the NUBITA Awards stopped being awarded by the Northern Territory Police?
It was some years ago, and I believe the name got changed to the Voldemort Award or something.
Do you know when the name changed from NUBITA to Voldemort?
No, I don't.
I suggest to you, Commissioner, that it was only in the last couple of years, since the commencement, or around the time of the commencement of this inquest, that name was changed to Voldemort.
I'm not sure.
That?
No, I don't. I know it was a few years ago, but I don't know the exact time, Your Honour. I'm sorry.
Is it something that you should know about as Commissioner of Police in relation to when there was the NUBITA Award last?
Yeah,
If
look,
you're interested in investigating racism.
I know it was a few years ago, but I don't know the exact date. I'm sorry. I can refer to a document if you like, but I don't have the answer on me right now.
I'll be corrected if I'm wrong, but this is in the brief of evidence. Superintendent Gill has informed the court that the name was changed from NUBITA to Voldemort in 2022, and that's confirmed in the statement of Meacham King 7-77D. So the fact that the racist term NUBITA Award was still being used in 2022 suggests, doesn't it, that allegations in relation to racism are not historic, even taking the TRG awards. Doesn't use that.
No, that's obviously still concerning, Your Honour.
Last Monday, you gave evidence at an inquest into the deaths of Kumanjayi Haywood Kumanjayi, Miss Yunupingu and Diego Rugurk, victims of domestic violence?
I did, yes.
You were asked by Mr Bolton of Senior Counsel about your decision to overturn a disciplinary action against an acting senior sergeant who distributed a photograph of a half-naked Aboriginal woman, naked from the top up, with some commentary which you acknowledged was racist in nature.
Yes, I agree. The image is definitely racist. I don't think the commentary was referring to a colleague from memory.
There was the commentary attached to went something like rolls with, and I won't say the name.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Rolls with.
One
I
time.
refer to it as F one time.
Yes,
That's the intended to refer to a current police officer. Is that right?
that's right.
And not only was that image distributed, just to be clear, that image was taken on the private phone of a police officer while he was on duty. You're aware of that?
I don't know what device the photo was taken on, but yes, it was taken by an officer on duty.
I'll just read to you from the PSC file. It's alleged that you took the photograph on your personal mobile for the purpose of gaining favour from other members within the chat group. The photograph clearly depicts a vulnerable member of our community in a state of undress. You agree with that?
Yes,
The community expects that a member of the Northern Territory Police Force will respect the worth and dignity of all. That's correct, isn't it?
absolutely.
And the PSC, Assistant Commissioner Porter, wrote in this report, by photographing and then posting this image, you, the acting senior sergeant, undermine the community's trust in the police to serve and protect without prejudice. You agree with that?
Yes, it's in the document.
And he wrote, as a supervisor, it's expected you would have an understanding of the consequences that would pursue if a post of this nature was viewed by the public, as well as the detrimental effect of the community's confidence in the Northern Territory Police Force. That officer distributed that image on a chat group with 13 other officers who were part of a particular strike force involving property crime. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct, Your Honour.
And a number of those members, not all of them, but a number of those 13 officers either commented or liked or did something to indicate their approval of what was done by that acting senior sergeant.
Yeah, I'm aware they're all involved in the conversation in that group chat, but not particularly around that photo, I'm not sure.
The dates of circulating that derogatory photograph and the commentary was the 4th of March 2022. It's not historic action, is it?
No, it's not.
On the 8th of December 2023, a disciplinary decision was made by Assistant Commissioner Porter to demote that officer one rank from sergeant, which was his substantive position, to senior constable and to transfer him to Catherine. On reflection, do you say that that was an appropriate response given the level of seriousness? And it wasn't just that image that he distributed, there were other images of a female police officer that was sexist in nature. Do you say that was an appropriate response?
Yes.
On the 15th of September 2023, the NTPA legal representative wrote to you asking you to overturn the decision. In response to that letter from the NTPA, you reversed the decision to demote the officer and you moved him to Darwin. On the 24th of September, you wrote to him directly agreeing to do so.
Your Honour, I object to that. I presume that my learned friend is referring to the notice included in that disciplinary file. The request was not to overturn the decision and take certain action. It was to seek a review under the legislation.
Thank you, I'll clarify that.
That was the request.
Dear Commissioner Murphy, request for a review pursuant to Section 84E of the Police Administration Act. It notes, it's a letter from Miss Amanda Nobbs-Karkuro, the Principal Legal Officer of the Northern Territory Police Association, and she writes that on Monday the 11th of September, this officer was served with a notice of determination, which was signed by Assistant Commissioner Bruce Porter. It notes that a review under Section 84E provides for a mechanism for a review of the actions taken or fines imposed on a prescribed member. It suggests that the actions taken by Mr Porter to demote the officer and transfer him to Catherine were so far disproportionate to the admitted breach of discipline that they couldn't be sustained on an appeal. It notes that the conduct engaged in relates to some shared images when he was part of the Strike Force Viper chat group in early 2022. It suggests that that officer was interviewed with respect to his conduct on the 7th of June 2023, where he admitted the conduct and displayed genuine contrition and reflection, and that he also provided further context in his written response to the Section 79 notice. He then asked you to review that in accordance with the Act and to rescind the determination and to make a new determination. And that's what you did, didn't you?
That's right, Your Honour.
So then on the 24th, or the 21st of September, about a week later, you write directly to that acting senior sergeant and you make a different determination that he be on a good behaviour bond instead of a demotion and transferred to Darwin instead of Catherine. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honour.
You no longer think that was appropriate for you to have done that. Is that right?
That's also right, Your Honour.
Why have you revised your view?
I think so if I can step through the review process and taking sort of personal and organisational objectives into account, we were going from a workforce that was highly punished. We were trying to create an environment where people felt they could report poor behaviour. I noted that he had not come to attention for any adverse dealings since the time of the reported offending. A term of good behaviour would be an adequate measure. However, reflecting on it now when what's come to light and some of the concerns around racist conduct, messaging, I think the position could have stayed. If I had the file again to make a determination, Your Honour, I probably would have kept it the same or maybe firmer sanctions. So, yes, I think given the broader perspective and, I've taken into account the personal circumstances of the officer at that time, but I have to question, did I take into account the actual position of the victim or the lady who was filmed naked during that time and balance it? Probably not.
And not just, I accept what you say, of course, about the poor lady who was the subject of the photograph and any demeaning commentary that accompanied it. But he was in a position of influence as an acting senior sergeant or sergeant, and there were a number of younger officers involved in the chat group. It sets a disgraceful example, doesn't it?
Yes, and that's something that I've considered soon too, is the supervisory level. I can't allow a level of acceptance that I tolerate any type of racist behaviour, even in this one in isolation, but collectively as an organisation we need to take a firm stance on racism and those behaviours, and especially at the supervisor level.
Commissioner, when you gave evidence last Monday, you said there are essentially two reasons why you decided to review the decision. One was the remorse that was shown by that officer, and the second was that if you didn't review it, he would have just gone off on sick leave, likely, given that that was something that was being done by officers in the Northern Territory.
Yeah, there was the first aspect that he admitted his behaviours as soon as he could. He probably was a little bit defensive in some of the other messaging, but he did admit to the breach and his behaviours and realised he'd breached his supervisory responsibilities, so I had to take that into account. And Doctor, what was the second part?
The second part was that he would have gone off on sick leave.
Yep.
So I just want to break those down and unpack them. Before you made the decision in September 2023, did you read the PSC file with his explanation?
Yes.
See, it includes this at page 2. I strongly disagree with the insinuation that I have photographed a vulnerable member of the community with the purpose of gaining favour from other members. Although I don't recall the exact incident, I do recall that the female adult pictured is in a public place and she had voluntarily removed her garment. This was an attempt at light-hearted humour to highlight this can happen when you work with Acting Sergeant X. It's hardly remorseful, that comment, is it? It's defensive.
Yeah, it is a little bit defensive, yes.
And it shows a complete lack of understanding of the gravity of the conduct engaged in.
It certainly does, Your Honour, and that's the body of work ahead of us to reform some of our culture within the police force and suppress and eliminate this type of conduct or texting or racist behaviours.
In relation to the second issue, that he would have gone on sick leave, you were asked these questions last Monday. You're aware that the independent report that was done by Vince Kelly, a former police officer, notes that the misuse of sick leave is a significant issue amongst a number of Northern Territory Police Force. That is, that they use sick leave, misuse sick leave when disciplinary action is threatened.
Yes, I agree with that.
And are you aware that an issue emerged in this inquest where there was an exchange between Constable Rolfe, as he then was, and Sergeant Paul Kirkby on the 17th of October 2019, where Constable Rolfe said, "Fuck their gay cunts, yeah, they just find a name and go for you, eh, over and over, fuck them. Just let them waste time, and then if they ever have enough evidence, just stress leave until they let it go." Seems to be what everyone else does. It's pretty concerning, isn't it, that you've got a young officer at that stage in October 2019 apparently speaking to a sergeant about the misuse of sick leave as if it's a joke as a response to disciplinary action.
Yes, Your Honour, it's extremely concerning.
And it's not an issue that has yet been rectified, is it?
No, it hasn't. The sick leave provisions are an industrial entitlement under our enterprise bargaining agreement. Part of that review undertaken by Vince Kelly does establish an industrial working group that will look at those challenges into the future. But can I just highlight that it is a small number of people who abuse the sick leave. A lot of hardworking officers actually use the provisions legitimately.
That is clearly the case, Commissioner, and it's important for every police service in the country to have adequate sick leave provisions, given the important role that police play to serve and protect the community. But the devastating effect of misuse of sick leave is to impose a burden on the remainder of the good police in the Northern Territory that it becomes impossible for the service to cope with the demands on it. Do you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. We've got 109 employees off on long-term sick leave now, Your Honour. Majority are legitimate. However, some are not, and some continue for a long time, up to 12 months, up to 5 years. And part of the review process is reviewing certain sections of the Police Administration Act, including Part 4, which is the disciplinary part, and Part 5, which is the separations due to medical incapacity and the ability not to perform functions. But the work that needs to be undertaken is separating officers with dignity and respect who aren't going to return to the workforce, so we can, use those positions to have police officers that are operational, which lessens the impact and addresses the demand on the public. And it is abuse of public money, the people using sick leave, for if they're on a disciplinary process. But we just need tighter measures through the Act to measure and hold them to account and actually make sure it's delivered in a timely manner, because these processes go on for years, Your Honour.
Sergeant Bowens gave evidence that there have been some changes in sick leave provisions recently, but that's not the case, is it? The force is looking at it, but there have been no changes.
No, there were some changes in the recent enterprise bargaining agreement about 120 hours where there's a statutory declaration or a medical examination, but a medical certificate still allows continuation of the sick leave provision. It's just a form of governance where we can check the validity of the reason for absence.
So you want to create an environment and a culture where Northern Territory Police understand that there are some behaviours that will not be tolerated and will be the subject of proper disciplinary process. But if officers make a mistake, they can come forward, acknowledge it, and they will be supported, and their behaviours will be reviewed and understood in context. Is that fair?
Yeah, there's a couple of layers to that, Your Honour. I think the first thing is getting better at how we identify what actions officers are taking, whether it's use of force, all types of early intervention strategies, which is currently work underway, on identifying whether it's an individual issue or a corporate issue. Because if I've got officers that are, the trend analysis, that it might be an organisational issue that we need to address through early intervention. What I want is a healthy workforce that and a safe environment where they can report misconduct, have the courage to report racism in a safe environment where they feel protected, and we can address issues so we can reform some of our thinking and challenge the actual practice we're experiencing now.
Wasn't the acting senior sergeant, who was the subject of this disciplinary action, whoever came forward to report his behaviours, was it? It was a whistleblower in effect who found out about it.
Yeah, it was another member of the staff that reported the conduct.
So in relation to either this officer, the subject of the disciplinary process, or any of the other officers who liked or commented on the photograph, was there any attempt to offer them an education or retraining to help them understand the gravity of what they'd done?
I'm not sure, Your Honour. I'd say that's the view of the Professional Standards Command at the moment. It's about the education. It's about making sure that, what behaviours are acceptable, what are not, and actually educating the workforce and making sure we've got adherence to the code of conducts and people can actually feel safe to report inappropriate conduct or poor behaviour.
Should there have been training and education provided to those officers who liked or commented on that racist image?
Yes, there should be.
Can I have on
What
this
about the person who posted the image?
and the person who posted the image?
Yes. Yes, Your Honour.
Can that happen now, given that it has not been done to date?
Yeah, I think it can be, and that's part of the work we'll undertake with some of the reform work we're working towards into the future, starting next month.
Could I have, please, on the screen from our Commanding Officer 18-35? They're the 2007 awards, page 6 and 7. You've now had the opportunity to look at all of these, Commissioner.
I think I've seen most of them. Yes.
You'd agree that's just disgraceful racism?
Yes.
And the next image, please, Kelly. That, again, disgraceful racism, a member of the community who appears to be lying on the lawn on his stomach.
Well, yes, it is, and it's targeting vulnerable parts of the community.
So that can come down. I don't want to put on the screen the image of the poor lady whose photograph was taken in a state of undress. But do you see the similarity, Commissioner, between that conduct in 2007 with that so-called award, where there are vulnerable members of the community that are the subject of mocking, and what happened in 2022 when a vulnerable member of the community becomes the butt of a joke distributed by members of the Northern Territory Police Force?
Yes, I do see the relation, and it's unacceptable, and I will no longer accept it.
And if proper disciplinary action is not imposed, it sends a message to police officers that it is tolerated, that sort of disgraceful behaviour, at the highest levels of the Northern Territory Police Force.
Yes, it can, but importantly, we need to invest in the education and identifying what all forms of racism look like across the workforce, and making sure that people identify what's right and what's wrong and reporting it, so we can change the cultures, the subcultures, to make the workforce a safer, more culturally competent place.
Are there any other incidents, apart from that one I just took you to in 2023, where you intervened to overturn disciplinary decisions regarding racist or disgraceful behaviour?
No, I haven't overturned any other decisions. I had some correspondence from an officer in Alice Springs around a transfer, and he cited some family reasons, which are quite disruptive, and he's gone through a process where he's appealed it. It's currently before the appeal tribunal, and I've written to him staying the transfer until the appeal is complete.
And does that involve an incident of racism?
Does not know.
Have there been occasions when the NT Police Association just picks up the phone and asks you to intervene or review a decision?
Probably, intervene. Yeah, but the president of the Northern Territory Police Association, Mr. Finn, rings me regularly about lots of issues, whether it's industrial, employee, personal. There's a number of issues, including disciplinary matters.
Have you been keen to try and ensure the support, that is, that you get the support personally of the NTPA?
No, I don't expect personal support. I expect them to do their job as the president and the association. They've got an obligation to look after the workforce. Your Honour, my job is about rebuilding relationships as well, and I'd have to say there was some probably divisiveness and fracture prior to my appointment with the Northern Territory Police Association, and what I want to do is build a relationship where we can work together to look after the employees who do really important work and protect the community.
It's easier for you if you have the NTPA on side, isn't it?
It probably makes my job a bit easier, but it's not always the case.
Does it affect your decision making when it comes to disciplinary action?
No, it doesn't.
Yesterday, Mr. Rolfe gave evidence of an incident in the Water Police in the Northern Territory. Do you recall that?
Vaguely, yes.
What was that incident? What is involved in that incident?
I think there was a matter of, again, another text group where there was maybe some inappropriate texting amongst the group about maybe sexism or the workplace or bosses. They didn't like the bosses, and there was a bit of a toxic environment.
And did that involve circulating an image or making comments about an Indigenous police officer?
Yes, it did.
What sort of comments were made, or what sort of image was distributed?
I don't recall. I'd probably need to look at the file or some documents, Your Honour. I couldn't answer the question.
What date was it?
Well, I don't know. I'd say 2018, maybe. I don't know the date. I probably need to look at the file, Your Honour, to get some more information.
It resulted in a review of the Water Police, is that right?
A review of the culture and workplace, not a review in relation to the discipline.
And some officers, were any officers disciplined?
I believe so. I think I was a decision maker in some transfers out of the Water Police around it.
And was there any support provided to the Indigenous police officer who, do I take it from your answers that the Indigenous police officer was the butt of the joke, so-called, in this exchange?
Yeah, no, I think there was, from memory, and I think there was a couple of employees that were targeted through the messaging.
And what support was offered to those employees as a result?
Well, Your Honour, I'd probably have to look at the file. I know there was support provided through PSC. I've actually spoken to the officer involved as well, the Indigenous employee, at the time, and ongoing past that incident to support her and what she wants to do as well. So, but I'd have to look at the file, Your Honour. I just don't have those answers specifically.
When did you speak with that Indigenous police officer?
I've spoken to her on a number of occasions. As recent as this year. When she was in the Water Police as well. She remained in the Water Police for a while. But about her future and what she wanted to do, and made sure she could communicate with me if she needed to.
Was there any education or training to inform those officers of the impact of that sort of conduct, distributing messages in a group chat that were demeaning, including about an Indigenous police officer?
I'm not sure, Your Honour.
Should there have been, if there has not been already?
Yes, they should have been.
What you told the press in February this year, after denying that you knew about the certificates, is when your attitudes of the police officers came from the top, what's your reaction to that? And you said that's his evidence, that's the evidence he's given to the court in the process. When I go to Alice Springs and other stations around the Territory, I do not see those behaviours. I do not hear those comments. And you go on to talk about the fantastic job that good men and women do across the Northern Territory Police Force. I don't deny that there are many good men and women across the Northern Territory Police Force doing a fantastic job, But it is the case that in February this year, you knew that there were pockets of serious racist behaviour within the Northern Territory Police Force that were not historic. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I do agree with that. I know what text came out of this process in this inquest. Obviously, the case you've highlighted now and the one that was discussed at the DV inquest and raised again today. It's not pervasive, but it concerns me that it is out there in the workforce, and I don't know if some pockets or some areas of texting still exist, and that's the work we need to undertake, Your Honour, to educate the workforce, identify, make sure it's a safe workplace to report, and make sure that it's totally unacceptable to engage in any racist, discriminatory or misogynistic behaviours.
Commissioner Murphy, members of the Aboriginal community have been complaining of incidents of racism by some members of the Northern Territory Police Force for many years. That's racist language and racist conduct. In February, when you said you do not see those behaviours and do not see those comments, it effectively denies that there is any racism at all in the Northern Territory Police Force that you're aware of, and that was not correct. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I do agree with that.
It is effectively gaslighting members of the Aboriginal community who have experienced racism and have complained about it when you deny that there is any racism in the Northern Territory Police Force. Do you accept that?
Yes, I do, and we've taken steps to address that. I mean, their voice has been heard clearly, Your Honour, and we've convened 2 Indigenous reference groups both in Alice Springs and Darwin, so they can feel they have a voice to talk directly to the Deputy Commissioner and I. There's going to be some plans put in place around planning ahead and about equality too, about pathways for leadership success and development, and so they're listened to and changing those behaviours. And can I add, Your Honour, some of the work we're investing in, and I've mentioned that to this previous inquest, is bringing on the expertise of Miss Leanne Little into the workforce and she'll be joining me in June next year. She brings a wealth of experience and will challenge the thinking and the current culture of the Northern Territory Police Force to make it better for our employees and the community we serve. And she'll look at a range of matters for us, Your Honour, around strategic planning, implementation, workshops, education, what's embedded in training through the recruits, what's in-service training look like, helping achieve the 30% recruitment goal for Indigenous employees across the Northern Territory Police Force, breaking down barriers attached to recruitment, in-service pathways as well, because there are barriers that stop people progressing through the Northern Territory Police, making sure that Indigenous people have an opportunity to advance through the ranks of the police force, become supervisors, become commissioned officers, one day a commissioner of police. We need to reflect the community we serve. We currently sit at about 12.9% Indigenous population in the Northern Territory Police Force. The community is 30% Aboriginal people. We need to make sure we're aggressive in our recruitment, and that will be achieved with the assistance of Miss Leanne Little. She's got a wealth of experience as a police officer for 12 years in South Australia. She's a lawyer. She's worked in the Aboriginal Justice Agreement. She'll be strengthening the partnerships with all the Aboriginal agencies, the Anti-Discrimination Commissioner, the Human Rights Commissioner, the Ombudsman, embedding herself into processes like this where racist tones and evidence comes up in complaints against police. So we've got an extraordinary amount of work to do. We haven't invested in previously to identify what the issues are and correct it and make sure that people are educated that it's no longer acceptable, not for 1 minute.
Are there any members of the TRG currently who are Aboriginal?
I don't believe so.
Do you think, it didn't stop a racist image being circulated amongst the Water Police to have a member of the Water Police be an Aboriginal person, but do you think that that would be a good thing for the TRG to encourage applications from Aboriginal people and to support them in that workplace?
I think it needs to be encouraged across the entire workforce. So we have look, I've only got 177 employees who identify as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander. There are others who haven't identified in that ethnicity, but I think it needs to be applied to all aspects of policing, particularly, we see more isolated work groups probably engaging in those behaviours of the texting, disciplines like the TRG, the Water Police, the Viper. So we need to really focus on those areas of concern, and we're going to invest in our 200 sergeants across the workspace to make sure they identify and have the courage.
And you've clearly made the point that given the culture has to be set from at the top, it's very important to encourage and support Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in top roles in the Northern Territory Police Force.
We need to, yes, we do. We need to do better at encouraging and advancing Aboriginal people in the workforce and break away from their just ACPOs or Aboriginal liaison officers. And I must say, some of the work being done by the Aboriginal liaison officers and the connection to community is outstanding. The rebuilding of trust, they have been hugely impacted by these findings. Not just them, but the entire Indigenous and non-Indigenous employees have been hugely impacted by the evidence provided in this court about the existence of racism and the acceptance of it.
Accepting that the impact is because of the revelations that have come out, or in part, do you see the importance of picking the scab off racism so that we can actually understand the extent of racism in the police force before it's tackled?
Yeah, absolutely, I do, Your Honour.
You're on the record now of it as acknowledging that racist behaviour is not historic in the Northern Territory Police Force.
No, it's recent, Your Honour.
Some public figures have made comments recently to suggest that any racist behaviours or incidents are historic. I take it that you want to correct that misunderstanding.
Look, I think 20 years is pretty recent in policing, and we see the culture of policing change significantly. I think there's a huge opportunity, Your Honour, to make sure we change the culture from what we see today into the future as well, and what's acceptable and what's not.
In order to change it, you need to understand it. And I take it
Yep.
you want to correct the misunderstanding that it's ancient history or it's historic. It's not historic. And you want people to understand its recency so that it can be tackled properly.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct, and that's why I need help to do it, and that's why I'm bringing Miss Leanne Little in to do that, and she'll build a team to help us achieve that. But it's the responsibility of every employee across the police force.
Just briefly, in finishing, Commissioner, what's been exposed by current and former members of the Northern Territory Police Force who have themselves been involved in racist language and the production of racist certificates, including Rolf and with his racist language, Bowens in relation to racist language and certificates, Carrie Joy, and some members of the TRG, is that there are a significant number of officers who have recently used racist language. Do you accept that racist words amount to racism, even if expressed in private?
No, yes, I do.
And you accept that a willingness to use racist terminology about a community can affect attitudes towards a community?
Absolutely.
And attitudes do affect behaviours.
Yes, I've got a saying about that very issue that I broadcast to the workforce, Your Honour. It's about your thoughts become your words, and your words become your actions. Your actions become your character, and your character becomes your destiny. So start changing your thinking to change the destiny, and that applies to the organisation as well in the current environment we're in.
And in those circumstances, it's certainly not possible for you to say, Commissioner, reflecting on the tragedy that is at the core of this inquest, that racism did not play a part in the death of Kumanjayi.
Well, I object. I object. He's being asked to speculate about something that is far removed. He doesn't claim to be an expert on the effect of racism. And in my submission, this is asking him to engage in mere speculation. And I object to the question.
I press the question, Your Honour. Commissioner has given important evidence in relation to his understanding previously and now about racism in the Northern Territory Police Force, and he's just given an answer which is reflective and thoughtful in relation to the impact of racist words on behaviours, character and conduct. he is ideally placed as a Commissioner of Police in the Northern Territory to give evidence in relation to racism. He hasn't been parachuted into that job without being a police officer. He's been serving as a member of the Northern Territory Police Officer when certain conduct was taking place, and he has had an evolution of ideas in that regard. That's why he's being asked these questions. He's also in a position where he is going to have to tackle it.
Your Honour,
It's
may I
not-
respond to that?
Sure.
Very
Just
shortly.
as I understand it, it's not directed at any particular individual or any particular piece of conduct. It's a reflection on what he has just identified, that words and thoughts can and do influence behaviour. And if that is accepted, then given what we know about words and language surrounding the events and the circumstances of this death, it is common sense that it cannot be excluded that those words and thoughts may have influenced behaviour.
Well, that's a conclusion.
And he's being asked, as the Commissioner of Police,
Yep.
to provide his opinion and views in relation to that.
May I enlarge upon what I said? The learned friend, Dr. Dwyer, has very carefully examined the Commissioner in relation to the steps, and appropriately so, the words can lead to action. The learned friend has then gone from the general to the specific, and it's the specific that I object to. I have no objection to the Commissioner being asked in general terms, is it possible that these can be the steps and that these can be the outcomes? No one would deny that that's appropriate. But to then go to the specific, and which is what the question is designed to elicit, in my submission, is not a proper form of cross-examination, I object to that question, because this witness is not an expert. He can't say what
He is
occurred.
an expert in policing.
Maybe, but there's no evidence. He's not an expert on what policing occurred on the night of the 9th of November 2019. He wasn't there.
It's not limited to
wasn't
simply the 9th of November. It's the whole circumstances
But the
that
question,
led
I don't want to interrupt you, Honour, but the question is that the question is designed to be limited to the 9th of November 2019, and it's that I object to.
Perhaps
might
not
clarify the question.
I'll ask my learned friend to listen carefully to the question. It's, given your evidence, Commissioner Murphy, it's not possible for you to say, reflecting on the tragedy of Kumanjayi's death, that racism did not play a part in his passing.
Sorry, Doctor, can you ask the question
Sure,
again?
let me just put it in as a positive. Reflecting on what you have said previously, it's certainly possible that racism played a part in the death of Kumanjayi Walker, given the evidence that you have given to that.
I believe that attitudes, conduct, words of police and attitudes towards disadvantaged and vulnerable people does shape a culture, and I cannot eliminate that racism wasn't involved in the decision making towards actions by police in all types of operations, and that's the systemic part of the policy process, as well as the cultural attitudes and words across the workforce we need to change.
So you can't eliminate the idea that racism, or you can't eliminate the prospect that racism was involved in Kumanjayi's death.
Well, I object to that.
It just follows from exactly what the
Well,
Commissioner
it's a-
said, and I press the question.
Can I have my objection heard, please?
Yes.
My objection is that's a matter for submissions. The Commissioner has given an entirely appropriate answer. It's for a learned friend to make the submission based on that answer. And I object to this question being put in this way to the Commissioner.
It's a matter of common sense, and it flows from what was just said, and I press it, Your Honour.
In my view, it is a matter of common sense, and I won't allow the question to
May,
be asked further.
may it please the Court. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Doctor.
Are there any other questions for the Commissioner?
I have some, thank you. Commissioner, thank you for coming at short notice to deal with very difficult issues. when you gave your press conference with the police minister, on the 27th of February 2024, it was a matter of great public interest that there be some considered public commentary from you and the Minister about Constable Rolfe's evidence in this court the day before, wasn't it?
Oh, yes.
The suggestion had been made that there was not just racist attitudes reflected in the award ceremonies at the TRG, but that there was widespread use of racist language and attitudes on display in Alice Springs at the police station and in carrying out police duties. That's what Rolfe had said, right?
Yes, I agree.
You had a choice, didn't you, to say something like, we will get to the bottom of this and see what's the story, or say what you did say, in large measure, it might be a few bad apples. I've not seen it myself. I know nothing about these awards. We'll get to the bottom of this allegation about some officer at an Asian restaurant. I suggest to you that when you fronted the media that day, you chose to deflect the issue rather than to accept that there was a problem, a big problem for the police, didn't you?
I'm not sure if I agree with that, Mr. Bolton and Your Honour. I think that I accept we had a problem. I think there was complex because there was a number of inquiries that were undertaken with the Independent Commissioner Against Corruption. But, you know, I don't, you know, I'd probably challenge the widespread narrative in the Alice Springs Police Station in the current day about racist behaviours, and I think we've got a good representation and good leadership there that will challenge and detect those. Could I have been more detailed in my media release? In hindsight, yes, I could have been.
I want to challenge your evidence in court today that it was sort of just a mistake that you told the press that you didn't know anything about the TRG awards. Do you understand? I'm suggesting to you that as you stood there in front of the press, you knew about the TRG awards and you chose to deny it, didn't you?
No, that's not correct, Your Honour. I knew about the TRG awards because they came out in the court. But
Could you speak up a little? I can't hear you.
Yes, I knew about the TRG awards because they came out in the inquest, but I didn't draw a link or remember, obviously, the link back to the August meeting. So that, look, I was very focused on the evidence in the court and how we're going to address and rectify that, Your Honour.
You've by and large accepted everything that this fellow, Carey Joy, has said in his statement about these issues. You agree? That's what your evidence is today. Yeah, by and large, I accept what Carey Joy says about these issues, right?
Yes, I do.
So amongst the things that he reckons is that he told you in August 2023 that potentially 100 odd people may have certificate copies, pictures of them, videos of the presentations of the awards, evidence of the New-Gooder Club in the cave, and he pointed out to you that this could blow up as a matter of great concern if it became public, right?
Yes, that's right.
So then, on the 26th of February, here it does, in this court, blow up, right? Agree?
Oh, yes, I agree, yes.
You weren't expecting it to blow up on the 26th of February, I take it, were you?
No, I don't believe so, no.
Sorry?
No, I wasn't expecting it.
So when it did, what inquiries did you make before you went before the press on the 27th of February to say what you said on that occasion?
I think I spoke to, well, obviously, the executive team about the actual awards themselves. Yeah, look, I can't remember my exact inquiries before the media press event with the media manager, Your Honour, but look, I would have inquired about the awards. There was obviously the visions of the awards that I had to familiarise myself with. And before I made a statement, I had to go and make a statement out to the public because they expect to hear from me, and the police force expects to hear from me about the current situation, what evidence has been
Which
given.
members of the senior executive did you consult?
Look, I can't remember.
What rank?
It would have been assistant commissioners or
Yep.
commanders. That's
Did you consult with Acting Assistant Commissioner James Gray Spence?
I don't remember. I could have, but I just don't remember.
Superintendent Sean Gill?
I don't think so.
What about Superintendent Craig Garland?
No, I don't think I spoke to Craig.
But you might have talked to Acting Assistant Commissioner James Gray Spence.
I could have, Your Honour. I just can't remember.
Well, did you talk to anybody who'd held office in the TRG?
Look, I can't remember, Your Honour. It's some time ago now, and it's I know I've had discussions about it to try and get an informed position before the press release, but I just can't remember who I spoke to that time.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes, sure.
did any of the people that you spoke to before you stood up in the press tell you that anything wrong had happened at the at the TRG awards? Did they tell you that there were awards, that there weren't awards, that there were problems with the awards, that there was some issue with the awards? What was the nature of the information that you did receive from the people who were talking to you about this evidence?
Yeah, from memory, it was from the court, Your Honour.
Sorry?
It was from the evidence at the court and the images at the court.
Mr. Murphy, you've already told us that when you heard about the evidence in court, you consulted people before you went to the press. You can't remember who it was, you can't remember the exact ranks, but tell us what the information was that was given to you before you turned up in public and said you'd never heard about it before.
It's probably something I'll need to go back to the media manager with, because I would have spoken to a number of people trying to get an informed position. I can't remember exactly who, Your Honour. I'm not trying to be...
Not asking that. What was the nature of the information that you were given? Was it, yes, this is a problem, Commissioner, or this is a complete beat up by...
Yeah, I think there was no harm in the awards, or I think it was that, I'm just trying to think what the exact words were, but there was some question around their veracity, whether they were real or not. I think that was one of the topics, and soon after that, I just treated those awards as real.
Well, you weren't treating them as real as at the time of your press conference, were you?
I think there was a level of uncertainty about where the source was or where it came from, and there needed to be some inquiries undertaken with those involved in the TRG and any awards that were given. So there needed to be that level of investigation to satisfy ourselves what it actually meant. I think it was pretty fast moving, Your Honour.
Yeah, well, Mr. Murphy, you didn't expect to be questioned about it under oath either, did you?
I think I did.
So, Mr. Murphy, the suggestion that somebody could have told you in August about the fact that there are hundreds of videos and probably dozens of people who can confirm that there were racist awards at the TRG, could not have escaped your attention between whatever time it was on the 26th of February that you heard about Rolf's evidence on the one hand, and you standing up to the press on the 27th of February after consulting with high-ranking members of the executive, your press advisor, and whoever else it was that you checked with about these incidents?
Yeah, I think, Your Honour, it was some time after the club was seized from the TRG office, but it wasn't at that time. But yeah, I think it was still a state of uncertainty, Your Honour, about whether they were real or not, and that was my position at the time, Your Honour.
Was the fact that you were still uncertain about the nature of the evidence, about the accuracy of the evidence that Zachary Rolfe had given you, part of the reason why you told the assembled journalists on the 27th of February, it might just be that there's a few odd people who have racist views in the Northern Territory?
Sorry, can you say that again?
I'll withdraw the question. By the time you stood up, you had been told about the TRG awards, right?
Yes.
When you were told about the TRG awards, when Mr. Joy told you about them, you accepted he's probably telling you the truth, did you? Did I accept that Mr. Kerry Joy was telling me the truth? Not at that time. I wasn't really thinking about Kerry Joy at the press conference. I'm not talking about the press conference. When Joy told you what he did, that there are these awards, there's 100 odd people that may have certificates, videos, evidence about the New Gouda Club, etc. Did you accept that what he was saying was correct?
Probably not in entirety. I'd sort of question the reliability on a number of levels. He was disaffected. He was he was obviously communicating with me, but I had to test that reliability or test that. But regrettably, I've said earlier, I didn't.
Mr. Murphy, when Mr. Joy told you in August that he was aware of the Chinese restaurant issue, quote unquote, did you believe him then?
Yeah, I believed him.
When you stood up on the 27th of February, you were aware of the water police issues that you've been discussing in your evidence today, right?
Yes, I wasn't aware of it. It wasn't in my mind, but I had dealt with it, and maybe I should have got more of a brief around the history of some of these incidents across the police force, so I had more of an informed position.
And you knew about the issue concerning the senior sergeant at Alice Springs that had been the subject of the disciplinary appeal to you, right?
I knew it existed, but I wasn't thinking about it on that day, Your Honour.
So what were you thinking about when you went before the press and downplayed the issues of racism? Was there anything in your head at that time that suggested that there might have been some racist acts, statements, language and conduct in the police in the Northern Territory?
Yeah, Your Honour, it's never my intent to downplay the seriousness of the allegations, and the focus was on the evidence around this inquest and those awards that came out. I have dealt with matters that involve racist behaviours. They weren't forefront of my mind at that point in time. I couldn't. Well, yes, basically, I wasn't going to comment on it. I didn't recall it. Should I have? Maybe, and the benefit of hindsight, should I have looked back in history and looked at all the evidence of racial discriminatory and misogynistic behaviours in the police force to come out stronger, yes, and I intend to do that into the future, Your Honour.
It was a bad press conference in retrospect, wasn't it?
I don't know if I'd agree with a bad one. Obviously, there's room for improvement off the feedback today, Your Honour, but I think that it's about being available to the public and being accountable and trying to communicate a message to the workforce and the public, because it is hugely damaging to the community and the police force and the employees about what was revealed in the inquest.
Mr. Murphy, you cannot hold your position in the Northern Territory without knowing how important race relations are, right?
Absolutely agree, yes.
You are absolutely on notice that things are not working with policing in the Northern Territory, especially in Aboriginal parts of Aboriginal communities and in Central Australia, right?
No, I don't agree with that. We can do a lot better.
Can do better.
Yeah,
Okay.
we've done an incredible amount of work with our Indigenous leadership, our Aboriginal liaison officer programs. We've got 70 officers across about 40 communities. And we're invested heavily. We're continuing to recruit. We're looking at the improvement in the Indigenous pathways, going to that 30%
But just the
recruitment.
general
I think that I don't think, I just don't agree with that statement, Mr. Bolton. I think
Okay.
I do agree we have a whole body of work to do to improve it.
Commissioner, the general picture though, nearly 90% of the population of the Northern Territory are Aboriginal people, and something like 100% of the children in custody are Aboriginal kids, and a huge disproportionate number of Aboriginal adults occupy the prison in both Darwin, Alice Springs and Watch Houses, right?
Yes, absolutely agree.
And as you've said, arresting people is not going to solve this problem, right?
No, the answer is in the prevention and the engagement and in education and in health and housing. Police is the last resort. We need to flip it so we're not arresting everyone. We do arrest predominantly Aboriginal males for violence offences. We do arrest Aboriginal youth for property crime and vehicle offences. It's about an investment in the front end in education so people have a purpose in life, and it's about policing being different and about community engagement and prevention activities across a range of issues, including domestic violence, road fatalities, social policy. We've got a whole body of work to reduce the rates of offending and crime and disadvantage, and across the Northern Territory. I agree with you 100%, Mr. Bolton.
So, Commissioner, you would also agree that it's crucial to the success of your work and your police force's work that there be a relationship of trust between the community on the one hand and police on the other, right?
It's essential, Mr. Bolton, and that's some of the work we intend to do about connecting to the community, to local leaderships, to local governments, to all the Indigenous bodies, the land councils, to make sure that, you represent the families, you hear their voice loud and clear. We have to listen to the people you represent as well to make sure we're a police service that actually reflects what the community needs, to make it a safer and a better place, not a place where we're solely just arresting everyone.
In the 2022 Gallup review into the complaint system in the Northern Territory Police Force, it was acknowledged that it's apparent that a person's skin colour can sometimes play a part in the policing response to an issue, to the alleged credibility of complainants and the attitudinal behaviour of some police members. Do you accept that finding?
Yeah, and it comes down to the cultural piece, and it comes down to a range of things we have invested in, but we need more about unconscious bias and actual bias and how people are treated.
It was also found in that report that the police sometimes question the veracity of complainants based on who it is that's making the complaint, rather than assessing the merits of the issue itself. Agree?
Yes, and we are doing a whole body of reform work, Your Honour, around the Professional Standards Command and the educational package. And to that end, we've brought in a highly experienced officer from the Australian Federal Police, Commander Jason Kennedy, to help us reform that.
Yep. Commissioner, do you accept, as it was suggested in the Galliot Review, that the use of derogatory terms about Aboriginal people as part of everyday language, or labelling sections of the Aboriginal policing workforce in a particular way, is, quote, unprofessional, culturally detrimental, and quite simply interpersonal racism? Do you accept that?
Yes, I do.
Do you accept that police in private who talk in derogatory terms about Aboriginal people because they are Aboriginal people are acting in an unprofessional and unacceptable manner?
Oh, yes, I do.
And
It's,
do you
it's
accept?
discriminatory.
It seems almost inevitable that if they're doing it in private, it's more likely to reflect their attitudes than if they're on display. Agree?
Yeah, somewhat, yeah, I do agree.
And to dress it up as a joke doesn't mean it's not racist. You agree?
Yes, I do agree.
And in fact, dressing it up as a joke can make it even a worse form of racism, right?
Yep.
And do you agree that if people, police officers who do these things in private and receive support from each other as they do them in private, are likely to act in public in a manner which is influenced by the fact that those attitudes are accepted in private by their colleagues?
Yes, I do, Your Honour.
This is important, Commissioner, because there's been a body of evidence here from your colleagues that it's okay to be racist in private, so long as when you're out in the community you don't say those sorts of things. But that, you don't agree with that, surely, do you?
No.
And do you accept that the stereotyping of Aboriginal people is a, especially negative stereotyping of Aboriginal people, is a cancer which is difficult to detect?
Yes, I agree, and that's why we've got to do so much work to remedy this situation.
So isn't it better for the whole police force, the ministry, the government, to say, we've got a problem here and we need to deal with it, rather than to simply say it's not a problem, it's hardly anything, it's a bad apple, there's nothing wrong with the orchard?
Yeah, I accept that, and that's why we're going to do a body of work to reform some of the, obviously the behaviours and cultures of the Northern Territory Police Force to make sure it's eliminated or identified and educated.
Mr. Murphy, you were an acting assistant commissioner, an assistant commissioner, and a deputy commissioner, then the acting commissioner, now the commissioner, for what? 10 years or more?
7?
7, right. A large part of that time, you were in a key position to be able to influence these outcomes, weren't you?
Yes, I agree.
What was the most important step you took during that time to deal with racism in the Northern Territory Police Force?
Making sure that, it doesn't exist, it's addressed, that there's respect, there's equality in the workplace, people are treated well, with respect, especially our Indigenous colleagues. I have very strong bonds with our Indigenous communities and our Indigenous colleagues, and I'm, try and do my best every day to make sure that the workplace is safe, it's culturally competent, we're doing the best we can to deliver services, and I'm now bring that all that time, and even as an officer, to the position I'm in now, where I can make a difference and make a real difference with the executive team, but not just me, the whole of the government and with community.
What structural thing did you do? What change of policy did you implement? What reforms did you bring about?
Probably
How
the
did you
most
deal with it?
the most significant was the introduction, which was the of the Community Resilient Engagement Command back in, I think, 2020, which is a real significant investment in that connection to community and understanding, and really the reform work about how we police communities. And, we say we judge an operation by the absence of the use of force. Is the success of an operation is judged by the absence of use of force. The ALOs have been instrumental in engaging with community elders and peacekeepers to identify those we wish to arrest and peacefully surrender in the absence of force. We've seen that in a homicide at Yirrkala, and we've seen it time and time again across Central Australia, the connection and I think the respect on the senior law across Indigenous communities. That is a significant achievement, and that's continuing to be invested in, and that'll be reflective of the pathways of investment across Indigenous leaderships into the future in the Northern Territory Police Force. So that is a sign, and it's a proven fact of success. So we need to continue with that. We also need to challenge our policy settings. We need to continue to challenge our policy settings because they are designed and racist in certain ways, even our internal policy settings. So that needs to be reviewed as well.
Are you committed to an anti-racism strategy that supports the Aboriginal Justice Committee review of systemic racism?
Absolutely. So talking with Leanne, she's going to design an anti-racism strategy, the implementation program and focus groups and delivery, which will involve the education and the like. And I've already written to the Aboriginal Justice Unit to engage them in assistance. And the Anti-Discrimination Commissioner will also assist us in some reform work, some investigative work, looking at the history, draw a line in the sand and say, what have we done wrong, so to say, is peel the scab back and then move forward with some productive measures to make it a better workplace and a safer environment to provide a better service across the Northern Territory and to those disadvantaged people.
Do you support the expansion of the Community Resilience Command to include more positive community engagement, more employment of local Aboriginal police and other staff, including unsworn officers?
Yeah, absolutely. We're trying to work through, and this is the work that will get traction next month, is around identifying residents who may be involved in the night patrol, Your Honour, and making sure there's pathways open to them to join either the ALO or the ACPO stream or the constable stream, designing certificates that are recognised for learning and investing in that pathway. So I absolutely want to invest in local communities, community policing, identifying patterns of concern, the harms we see with grog running, domestic violence. It can't be just a police response. And, looking at simply of locking people up for driving offences, if we actually engage with them and the community engages with them to get their licences, they're going to stay out of the criminal justice system and put them on a pathway where they can actually help us. I think the solution lies in community. It doesn't lie in the criminal justice system. And we need to start looking at that space in from a policing perspective. We are still operating a really high demand environment at the moment. We're doing everything we can to reduce that demand environment so we can actually then turn it into community engagement, and engagement with the community, but also targeting those who continue to cause harm, such as high harm domestic violence offenders.
All this money that's coming forward in the recent budget, $90 million extra for your police force. Is there money there for these programs, for community policing programs, for the development of liaison with Aboriginal people, with the night patrols and those sorts of measures that we've just spoken of?
So it's complex. So the cabinet decision to invest $570 million over 4 years is structured in a way that'll be delivered through the review, but through a implementation process about what that will look like. Ultimately, it will come down to the implementation team. The focus will be on frontline policing, but there's some room for other disciplines such as forensics. The call centre needs better enhancements as well, and more staff, because we see the call rates and abandonment rates really high because of absenteeism. When it's more contemporary, to make sure we're focused on the service areas that need to be focused on to prevent crime, but also address crime to keep people safe.
Are you going to swear in Leanne Little as a sworn officer?
No.
Why not?
Because I'm bringing across as an executive director. I got some advice from the HR team and I just can't do that yet, but I have said to her there could be an opportunity to do that in the future.
And those various, I won't call them restrictions, but the framework within which you need to operate in the context of this expanded budget, didn't sound like there was much left in that for the sorts of things that we're talking about.
Look, I think there's always opportunity, Your Honour, about talking to the Minister and making budget cabinet submissions around projects and programs throughout the year. Whilst there's a budget allocation that goes through estimates and there's the annual report, there's opportunities throughout the year to ask government for other investments. And when it's productive and engaging and it actually is an investment across many government agencies, I think that might be something that the government might entertain.
So, if the government has the view, as expressed by the Police Minister, that really racism is not very much of an issue, what's your prediction about the resources that are going to be allocated to the sorts of measures that you just saying are necessary?
Well, my investment is committed to make sure we effect change and to implement the change, putting the mechanisms in place to do that, and that's increasing Indigenous employment to start with, and education programs, and I'll be guided by the conversations I'll have with Leanne and Miss Kath Webber, who joins the team in June as well as the Deputy CEO, to strengthen the corporate support and the governance and accountability across the organisation.
Just one last topic. The Inquest has received statutory declarations from members of the police force who were members of the TRG over the years. Stat decks produced and signed on the 28th of February and I think one on the 29th of February in the immediate aftermath of your press conference, days after the bomb was thrown in that witness box by Zachary Rolfe about all this. They all said, nothing to see here about these TRG awards. Have you read those stat decks?
I think I've had a look at a couple of them. I don't think they were created in the aftermath of my press release. I think they were requested through our council, given the testimony presented here.
Okay, well, it was the day after your press conference,
Yep.
too, and it was 2 days after the Rolfe evidence. And so they're all in response to the Rolfe evidence, and they all basically said, what Rolfe is saying about the TRG awards is wrong. All right, no connection to Indigenous Australians, it's got no racist connotations, it's about cavemen, it's about that sort of issue, nothing to do with racism. Are you aware of those stat decks?
Yes, can I caveat, Your Honour, just that it is an ongoing investigation with the ICAC as well?
Right.
I just think it's a sensitive matter and it's an ongoing inquiry with the Independent
So I was going to
Commissioner
ask
Against
you,
Corruption. So
is it the subject of an investigation or has any action been taken, but your evidence is that there is a current ICAC investigation into what those people said in their stat decks. Is that what you're saying?
Your Honour, I can confirm that, yes.
No, I'll leave it at that. That's all I wish to ask.
Thank you, Your Honour. May the witness please see Exhibit 1728. I'll be about 10 minutes.
Are you happy to sit for a further 10 minutes or
Oh,
would
yes.
you like a break?
No, I'm good, thanks, Your Honour.
Commissioner, my name is Mullins. I appear on behalf of the Brown family, including the mother of Kumanjayi Walker and the woman who raised her. You're aware of the Code of Conduct of 2007,
Yes, I am, Your Honour.
and you're familiar with the contents of that document. They're about to come up on the screen.
Mainly, yes.
Is it still operative at the current time as the Code of Conduct?
Yes.
Can you please turn to page 10 of the PDF? You would be familiar with paragraphs 67, and can we scroll down please so we can see the start of 67? And we can see at 66, members must not harass or discriminate against any person, and then 67, for the purpose of this code, harassment is not limited to sexual harassment and is used in a broader sense, etc. And some examples are given, and we can see at 67.2, unwelcome remarks, jokes, taunting about a person's body, attire, ethnic or national origin, etc. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And you're familiar with 67.3, displaying racist or other offensive or derogatory material, such as posters or cartoons.
Yes, Your Honour.
Now, the TRG awards, you would agree, and the material that is associated with that included images which would have breached those provisions.
Yes, Your Honour, I agree.
It included the disrespect of the Aboriginal flag, which would have breached those provisions.
Agree.
You agree that it included racist jokes.
Yes, I agree.
All right. Now, can I ask you to then forward through 2 pages to paragraphs 85 and 86, and you would be familiar that it's an obligation of a member to report any suspected or actual breach of the Code of Conduct and Ethics, or any suspected or actual of the TRG awards.
That's correct.
And 86 says this should be done through the normal chain of command. Is that still the case?
That is the Professional Standards Command.
We then see where possible such breach should be resolved at a local level. However, in serious cases, the matter is to be referred to the commander of the Ethical and Professional Standards Command for assessment and determination of investigation. The maintenance of the TRG awards over a decade would be a serious case of a breach of the Code of Conduct?
Yes, from what we've seen, the context of it and the narrative, yes.
And can we infer from the fact that it does not appear to have been referred to the commander of the Ethical and Professional Standards Command that it's never been reported in that period of time?
You can absolutely make that assumption, Your Honour.
Now, let's just imagine for one moment that there was an officer who was at the TRG awards in one particular year who watched the awards being given and thought, this is not right. Or who went back and dusted off his code of conduct, his or her code of conduct, and looked at section 67.2 and section 67.3, and then looked at paragraphs 85 and 86 and said, I have to report this. What would you have recommended that that person do?
Contact to well, they're talking to me, that's probably good enough, but I'd say report it to the commander of professional standards.
Well, they couldn't very well go up the chain, could they?
Well, they can, and that's what we're going to challenge.
Well, let's go back to the time that these TRG awards were being presented. Let's take 2012 as an example. They couldn't go up the chain if they were a TRG member because it was the sergeants who were maintaining the TRG awards.
And that just identifies the challenges ahead of us.
Do you agree that the events surrounding the TRG awards represented a catastrophic failure of the application of this code of conduct?
It's absolute failure of it, yes it is, because there's a non-adherence and it's there for a reason.
The event that has subsequently occurred in the most recent past involving the photograph of the woman that was distributed. I don't want to bring the photograph up, but it's a criminal act, is it not? Is it a breach of the criminal code to distribute intimate images?
Yes, it could be, and I'm sure PSA explored that avenue.
All right, so do I understand there's an investigation with a view to criminally charging the particular officer who spread that image?
I don't believe so. I think that case, the matter has been finalised.
All right.
Otherwise, we probably would have seen an officer charged and brought before the court. Your Honour.
The images that we've seen are blacked out, but it is the case. Have you seen an unblacked out image?
Of the photo?
Yes.
Yes.
Is it the case that a portion that was blacked out, in fact, includes the depiction of blood?
Sorry, can you say that again?
In a portion of the picture that was blacked out, that was presented here, is there a depiction of blood on that person's body?
I don't remember. I probably need to look
a
at.
copy of that in court if it was this.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Would you like to have a look at that photograph? Oh.
Yes, Your Honour, that's correct.
So there is blood on that person's body. You accept that?
Yes, that's on the breast, yep.
Does that cause you any greater concern that that person may have in fact been in a state of distress?
Oh, yes. It does.
Do you think that maybe that should be investigated further?
Yeah, I'll probably need to go and talk to the Commander of Professional Standards and get a review and see what some of the other considerations were.
In your ongoing consideration of these matters, have you considered a framework for complaints so that a serving officer, whether they be a sergeant or a member or at whatever level, can go outside the chain of command and make a complaint to a particular a person that is an anonymous complaint?
I believe, I'm not sure about the anonymity, but I believe that some of the work that the Commander Jason Kennedy's undertaking about the reporting, about safe reporting, and we obviously have encouraged people in recent times to report any inappropriate material, conduct, racist, discriminating, misogynistic to us and to the ICAC as well.
One final matter, Commissioner. My clients have found the disclosure of this TRG awards and the events surrounding it very distressing. You can understand that?
Absolutely.
Do you understand they might have some concerns about transparency in that the person who brought it to their attention was Zachary Rolfe?
Yes, I understand their concerns.
And you understand they have concerns that had he not brought it to the attention of the Coronial Inquest, that it would have gone undiscovered?
It could have been, yes.
What words can you give them to reassure them that they can properly investigate it in the future?
I think that's the body of work we need to embrace now about making difference, Your Honour, about making sure that, you know, there's access, the community have access, to have trust and confidence in us to eliminate this type of behaviour. It's a body of really important work that's long term, but I understand how the family feels, and, you know, we do have an incredibly large amount of work to do to turn it around and to stamp out what is deemed to be acceptable now, Your Honour.
You mentioned that engagement with the community is a critical aspect of moving forward. Is that right?
Absolutely it is. We rely on the community to police by consent.
As Commissioner, will you leave the door open to considering the engagement with cultural law as part of that process?
Yes, I will, and I think we do some cultural training through induction and recruits. The complexity is the cultural diversity of the territory and where officers deploy and getting availability to do that. but it is definitely going to be considered.
And do you as Commissioner understand that cultural law plays an important part in the day-to-day life in the community, and the community want that maintained?
Yes, I do.
Thank you, Your Honour.
Are there any other questions? Mike,
Go ahead.
so there are some more. I'm just going to take a short adjournment, 10 minutes, and we'll return.
Oh, thank you. Was that longer than 10 minutes?
No.